Grass Court Mayhem, the Filipina Miracle, the Serbian Goats Final Countdown, and COCO'S heart-stopping escape. Wimbledon 2026 just went nuclear. Grab your strawberries, grab your cream, and buckle up, tennis fam, because Wimbledon 2026 has officially lost its mind, and we are living for every second of it in the span of just 3 wild days at the All England Club. A 21-year-old underdog from the Philippines rewrote the history books. A 39-year-old Serbian legend inched closer to a record that has stood since the days of Roger Federer's prime. A 44-year-old icon returned from the tennis afterlife only to get bounced by a kid half her age, and a 2-time Grand Slam champion stared elimination dead in the eye. Twice. Before clawing her way back like something out of a Hollywood script. If you thought grass court tennis was boring, honey, sit down, because center court just turned into a soap opera, and we're breaking down every single juicy detail. Let's start with a story that has an entire nation on the edge of their seats. Alex, Eala. Remember that name, because as of this week, it belongs in the tennis history books forever. This 21-year-old Filipina sensation walked onto court 12 as the 29th seed, already a historic achievement in itself, because she is literally the first player from the Philippines ever to be seeded at a Grand Slam. And she did not just win. She did not just advance. She absolutely obliterated Mexico's Renata Zaraza 6-1, 6-2 in a performance so dominant it left jaws on the floor across 2 continents. We're talking 22 winners fired off her racket compared to Zaraza's measly 11. We're talking 4 break points converted like it was nothing. We're talking a win secured in just about an hour and 18 minutes. Barely enough time to finish your bowl of strawberries and cream before the Filipina wrecking machine had already wrapped things up. And here's where the chills really kick in. This wasn't just a win. This was the win. The first ever main draw singles victory for a Filipina at Wimbledon in the entire Open era, which for those keeping score at home stretches all the way back to 1968. Before this, only 2 Filipino men, the legendary Felicissimo Ampan and Raimundo Deiro, had ever managed singles wins at Wimbledon, and that was before the Open era even began. Alex Eala just became the first woman from her country to do it ever in the modern age of tennis. Let that sink in. She didn't just make history, she rewrote decades of it in 78 minutes flat. And can we talk about the emotion in that stadium? Reports from courtside describe the atmosphere as absolutely electric, with a passionate crowd of Filipino fans packed into every available inch of seating, roaring so loud you'd have thought Eala had just won a semifinal, not a first-round match. The pride, the noise, the sheer joy pouring out of that crowd. This is the kind of moment that turns a rising star into a national icon overnight. And honestly, she's earned every bit of it. This isn't some fluke, some lucky draw, some one-hit wonder. Eala has been building toward this moment all season. She arrives at Wimbledon fresh off winning the Birmingham Open, her second career WTA 125 title, and she also stormed into the semifinals in Berlin, where she pulled off jaw-dropping upsets over not one but 2 top 10 players, Elena Rybakina and Alina Svitolina, back-to-back. That's not beginner's luck. That's a killer instinct sharpening in real time. She even spent her pre-Wimbledon prep training alongside actual Wimbledon royalty, teaming up with 5-time singles champion Venus Williams in doubles at Bad Homburg. When you're getting tips from a 5-time Wimbledon champion right before the tournament, something tells us Eala's grass game was always going to level up. And level up it did. She arrived in London on a blistering 9-3 run on grass this season, and she has now made it 10 wins. Now here's the twist that makes this whole storyline even more deliciously dramatic. Before this tournament even started, everyone was buzzing about a potential blockbuster second-round showdown between Eala and none other than Serena Williams. Yes, that's Serena Williams, the 23-time Grand Slam champion, 7-time Wimbledon queen, making her stunning return to Grand Slam singles at age 44 after nearly 4 years away from the sport. Can you imagine the storyline? A rising Filipina trailblazer going toe-to-toe with an all-time tennis deity in just her second Wimbledon appearance ever? The tennis gods were setting up the match of the tournament, but fate and a scrappy 20-year-old Australian named Maya Joint had other plans. In an emotional, nerve-wracking center court battle that had Serena's own daughters cheering from the players' box, Williams fought valiantly in her first singles match since the 2022 U.S. Open, showing flashes of the old magic, still cracking serves over 120 miles per hour, still dictating rallies with that unmistakable power. But 4 years away from competitive singles tennis is 4 years, and in the end, the movement just wasn't quite there. Joint, ranked a modest 87th in the world, but clearly unbothered by the moment, dug in and outlasted the legend in 3 dramatic sets, 6-3, 6-7, 6-3, in a match full of wild momentum swings, blown leads, and enough tension to make even the most seasoned tennis fans sweat through their strawberries. Williams, ever the class act, called the experience great despite the tight loss and admitted this comeback, inspired by wanting her young daughters to see her play, was about the moment, not just the result. She's set to continue her Wimbledon journey in doubles alongside sister Venus later in the tournament, so the Williams sister saga isn't over yet, folks. So instead of Eala versus Serena, we now get Eala versus Maya Joint in round 2, a fascinating rematch of sorts since these two have actually crossed paths before, with Joint getting the better of Eala in last year's Eastbourne final. Revenge tour, anyone? This is shaping up to be one of the must-watch matches of the entire tournament. 2 rising stars from 2 different corners of the tennis world, both riding waves of momentum, both hungry to prove they belong in the deep rounds of a Grand Slam. And if Eala somehow finds a way through that test, waiting in the wings could be none other than defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek in round 3, a matchup with real spice behind it, since these two have already split their 2 career meetings, with Eala stunning Swiatek during her breakout run at Miami before the Polish superstar returned the favor in Madrid. The Cinderella run continues, and honestly, we are not ready. Now let's pivot to the men's draw, where a different kind of history is quietly, relentlessly being written, this time by a 39-year-old who apparently forgot to read the memo about tennis players declining with age. Novak Djokovic, the GOAT himself, the 24-time Grand Slam champion who just refuses, absolutely refuses, to fade into the sunset gracefully like everyone else his age. On center court, in what can only be described as an absolute clinic, Djokovic took apart former world No-3 Stefanos Tsitsipas in straight sets, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2, wrapping the whole thing up in just 1 hour and 38 minutes. And listen, this wasn't some faded, injury-riddled Tsitsipas either offering no resistance. Well, actually, kind of it was, considering Tsitsipas arrived, ranked all the way down at 87 in the world after a rough stretch battling injuries and inconsistency following a split from his father coach. But he still had his moments of brilliance, still flashed some of that old shot-making magic that once carried him to 2 Grand Slam finals. It just wasn't nearly enough against a Djokovic who looked, in his own words, downright vintage. And can we talk about the numbers here, because they are absolutely bonkers. This win extended Djokovic's head-to-head dominance over Tsitsipas to a jaw-dropping 13-2, including 12 straight wins in a row. The man has beaten Tsitsipas in Grand Slam finals not once but twice, at the 2021 French Open and the 2023 Australian Open. And grass didn't change a thing about that dynamic when they finally met on it for the first time ever. Djokovic finished the match having struck 33 winners against just 7 unforced errors. And, get this, he did not face a single breakpoint the entire match. Not one. Total lockdown. Total domination. But here's the number that should really make your jaw hit the floor. With this victory, Djokovic notched his 104th career win at Wimbledon. That leaves him just 1 win shy of tying Roger Federer's all-time record of 105 men's singles match wins at the All England Club in the Open era. 1 win away from tying an icon who many considered the undisputed king of grass court tennis. And knowing Djokovic's track record of chasing down every record humanly possible, you better believe he is not stopping at tying anything. This is a man who is chasing a 25th Grand Slam title, his first since the U.S. Open back in 2023, and every match he wins right now is another brick in a wall he's building toward tennis immortality. Djokovic himself sounded downright serene about the whole thing afterward, saying he loved the word vintage being used to describe his game, joking that it brought back the best days and made him feel happy and satisfied out there. There was even a little scare in the match. A heart-stopping moment where he stretched for a backhand volley winner and went over on his ankle a bit awkwardly during the follow-through, but true to form, the man barely flinched, got back up, and calmly ripped off back-to-back aces like nothing happened. Ice in his veins, folks. Absolute ice. Up next for Djokovic in round 3, Frenchman Arthur Rinderknecht, the 25th seed who's playing the tennis of his life right now, matching his best ever Wimbledon run by grinding out a win over towering American Martin Damm. Rinderknecht has never faced Djokovic before, but he's shown flashes of danger this season, including a career-defining upset earlier in the year. Could this be the match where the unthinkable happens? Almost certainly not, if we're being honest, but hey, that's exactly what everyone said about plenty of Djokovic opponents before, and this is Wimbledon, where anything can happen on any given day. Just look at what almost happened in the women's draw. Speaking of which, let's get into the single most dramatic, nail-biting, stress-inducing match of the entire tournament so far. Coco Gauff, two-time Grand Slam champion, World No. 7, a player who has hoisted trophies at both the U.S. Open and the French Open, beating Aryna Sabalenka in both of those finals, no less. And yet, somehow, grass has remained her tennis kryptonite, with her best ever Wimbledon result stuck at the 4th round, and last year ending in a brutal first-round exit to Diana Yastremska. Coming into the second-round clash against Argentina's Solana Sierra, ranked a relatively modest 56th in the world, most fans probably expected a routine win for the American star. What they got instead was an absolute roller coaster that nearly ended in disaster. Gauff came out strong, cruising through the first set 6-3, looking every bit like the two-time major champion she is. But Sierra, who had already given Gauff trouble twice earlier this season, including nearly stealing a match in Rome after leading 3-0 in the decider, was not about to go quietly. The Argentine flipped the switch, raised her aggression, and stormed back to snatch the second set 6-3, forcing a winner-take-all decider that had absolutely everyone in that stadium gripping their armrests. And then things got truly terrifying for Gauff fans everywhere. Sierra surged ahead 5-3 in the third set. Then 5-4. Then, serving for the match at 5-4, Sierra found herself 2 measly points away, 2 points, from pulling off one of the biggest upsets of this entire Wimbledon. This is the exact kind of moment that has haunted Gauff at the All England Club for years. The exact kind of moment where her Wimbledon dreams have crumbled before. But something clicked. Something shifted. Gauff staring down the barrel of yet another early Grand Slam exit almost exactly 7 years to the day since she first burst onto the scene as a 15-year-old phenom upsetting Venus Williams at this very tournament, found something extra deep inside herself. She broke Sierra's serve right when it mattered most, clawing the match back to level at 5-5, and dragged the whole thing into a tension-soaked deciding tiebreak. And that tiebreak? Absolute theater. Sierra jumped out to a commanding 7-4 lead in the 10-point breaker, needing just 3 more points to complete the upset of the tournament. Gauff was staring elimination directly in the face, and then boom, she found another gear entirely. 6 straight points. Gauff reeled off 6 consecutive points to snatch the tiebreak 10-7 and complete one of the gutsiest comebacks of her career, closing out a 6-3, 3-6, 7-6-7 thriller that lasted 2 hours and 8 minutes and left the entire crowd on their feet. The signature shot of the whole match? A jaw-dropping one-handed backhand passing shot winner at 7-7 in the tiebreak that Gauff herself later admitted she could probably never replicate again if she tried 100 times. Pure instinct. Pure champion's reflex. She said afterward that her mind just went quiet in that moment, that years of doubles training kicked in on autopilot, that all she was thinking was simply get the ball over the net, and somehow, magically, that split-second reaction turned into the single biggest highlight of the tournament. Gauff was refreshingly honest afterward, admitting she sometimes battles feelings of imposter syndrome, even as a 2-time major champion, and crediting her coach's constant reminder to remember who you are for pulling her through the darkest moments of that decider. It's the kind of raw human vulnerability that makes champions even more relatable. and it's clear this win means something deeper to Gauff than just 3 points on the scoreboard. This marked the very first time in her career she has won a deciding set tiebreak at a Grand Slam, improving her career 3 set record at majors to a ridiculous 22-7. Resilience isn't just a buzzword for this kid, it's basically her entire brand at this point. So what's next for Coco after surviving her own personal horror movie? An all-American showdown in round 3 against Claire Liu, a former world no-1 junior and the 2017 Wimbledon girls champion who's looking to make some noise of her own on the senior tour. It's a fascinating storyline, 2 Americans with serious pedigree. One desperately trying to finally break her Wimbledon curse and push past the 4th round for the first time in her career. The other looking to prove her junior success can translate onto the biggest stage in the sport. Grass has never been Gauff's best surface by her own admission, but if this Sierra Escape Act proved anything, it's that counting Coco Gauff out right now would be a seriously bad idea. So let's zoom out for a second and take stock of just how absolutely electric this Wimbledon has already been, because these 3 storylines alone are enough to make this one of the most talked about grass court seasons in recent memory. You've got a 21-year-old Filipina underdog making history that will be remembered for generations, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire nation on her shoulders as she chases a date with defending champion Iga Swiatek. You've got a 39-year-old Serbian legend who refuses to acknowledge that Father Time exists, 1 win away from tying Roger Federer's most hallowed Wimbledon record, cruising through the draw with the terrifying calm of a man who has already seen and conquered everything this sport has to offer. You got a 44-year-old global icon proving that even in defeat, her mere presence can electrify center court and remind an entire generation why she's considered one of the greatest athletes to ever live. And you've got a 2-time Grand Slam champion clawing her way back from the brink of elimination in a performance so dramatic it belongs in a highlight reel that gets replayed for years. And honestly, this is just the beginning. We're only in the early rounds. As the draw thins out and the pressure ratchets up even further, expect even more fireworks, more upsets, and more history in the making. Will Eala continue her miracle run and topple a defending champion? Can Djokovic march past Federer's record and continue his relentless pursuit of major title number 25? Will Gauff finally break through her Wimbledon glass ceiling after surviving the scare of her life? We genuinely do not know, and that unpredictability, that raw drama, is exactly why we live and breathe this sport. So here's the deal, tennis fam. If this breakdown got your heart racing even half as much as these matches did, you already know what to do. Smash that like button so this channel keeps growing. Drop a comment below and tell us who you think is going all the way. Eala's fairytale run, Djokovic's chase for immortality, or Coco finally conquering her Wimbledon demons. And if you're not subscribed yet to Champions Tennisistics, what are you even doing? Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, because trust us, this Wimbledon story is only getting started and you do not want to miss a single twist. We'll see you in the next one. Same drama, same grass, same chaos. Until then, stay courtside, stay locked in, and we'll catch you at the next update.